JP leads the league in information. Good to see you, buddy. So now that Dave Dombrowski is in Philadelphia, I'm sure Phillies fans are really excited because they think the money is going to be flowing at this point. JT Realmuto, there was a lot of talk and a lot of thinking that his days in Philadelphia were numbered, but potentially now with Dave there, I don't know, could the Phillies maybe be the team to watch in terms of signing him to a long-term deal?
Well, the answer is yes, Fran and Tom. Good morning. Great to be with you on the show today. I spoke with a source last night who said he believes the Phillies right now are the favorites to sign JT Realmuto. And certainly the situation is fluid. Other teams are involved and will remain involved undoubtedly. But to your point, Fran, because of the new administration coming in with Dave Dombrowski now as the president of baseball operations, there's the sense that especially with James McCann having gone to the Mets, as you look around the other options, there maybe are not that same number of teams willing to spend that maximum level that Realmuto's been looking for, perhaps the Yankees, perhaps the Angels, but that the Phillies have at least as good of a chance to sign him as those other teams do. And you see what he has done among catchers. He is quite simply the best all-around catcher in the game right now. The Phillies saw that up close here the last couple seasons. We know how Bryce Harper feels about it. You consider where the Phillies are right now. Dave Dombrowski, I don't believe, would have taken that job unless there was the assurance that he was going to be able to compete and sign the very best players out there. And in this case, one of the very best players in baseball still out there was on his own team this past season. And I still believe right now, taking all into consideration, and I was told by a source this last night, the Phillies still in many ways are the favorites to land Realmuto.
Good morning, JP. Listen, Frankie Lindor is kind of, to me, like the Mookie Betts of this offseason, the biggest name out there that may be changing teams between now and opening day. What about Jose Ramirez, though? If I'm calling the Indians and I want a guy who's under control for more years, what would they say to me bringing up the name of Jose Ramirez?
It's a great question, Tom, and I believe the answer is that they would listen, but the price tag remains extremely high. Think about this. Jose Ramirez was an MVP finalist in 3 of the last 4 years. Not even Mike Trout or Mookie Betts can say that. He has been that great of a player in this league. I think that when you consider how affordable his contract is, Tom, with still control for multiple years, it's still likely that he'll be on the Cleveland roster come opening day 2021, whereas Lindor more likely to be traded. But I do think that when the Indians are in this listen mode, and they've already in the last couple of years traded Clevenger, they've already traded Bauer, they've already traded Kluber, they're on the verge of trading Lindor. It seems hard to believe that if Ramirez's name was brought up, they would say no, a flat no. I just don't think that's how they're doing business right now. So I believe they would listen. I think the price tag is exceptionally high, but I also believe there are teams out there, when you consider Lindor, for example, in his marketplace, if you're already talking about Frankie, why not say, listen, I'm not quite comfortable giving up this prospect in a Lindor trade because I only have him for 1 more year. But if the asking price and the conversation is about Ramirez, then you would say because of the multiple years of control, you're more comfortable engaging on those prospects. So I really think, Tom, because of exactly what you said, if you're already talking about one player who's a rental, if you will, for 1 year, it makes that next conversation a lot easier to have. And a team like the Mets, who are involved in just about every conversation, they could be a club because of their need at third base potentially that I think is just as good of a fit for Ramirez as they would be for Lindor.
All right, guys, you guys are crushing Cleveland fans right now. I mean, they're already coming to terms with the fact that Lindor probably won't be in a Cleveland uniform for too much longer. And now you're mentioning Jose Ramirez. I mean, and I know obviously revenues are an issue for every club based on what we just came from. But are the Indians in that much of a dire straits where they would be thinking about? I mean, because as you mentioned, JP, Clevenger's already gone. They traded Kluber. That Lindor's going to go at some point, and Jose Ramirez?
I don't think it's an end situation. No, I do think Lindor will be traded. I think because with 1 year left, earning them about $20 million, I mean, based on where their payroll, where they intended to be, not a great fit. So I don't think he moved both of them, no. But I'm with JP. You might as well ask about Ramirez as well and see where you go.
Yeah, I mean, he's been one of the great players
player
over the last 3 or 4 years. JP, over the weekend, John Heyman, another insider here at MLB Network, he tweeted out that potentially the Reds are discussing maybe moving Luis Castillo. What are you hearing about the Reds and Castillo?
One of the great change-ups in the game could be changing teams there with Castillo, and it's a great report by John. When you consider where the Reds have been this past offseason, the last several weeks, with Iglesias being traded, Bradley being non-tendered, it does seem like to their neighbors to the north in Cleveland, the Reds are having very much an open-minded conversation about multiple players, pitchers all being available. And you see what Castillo has done. I think he's one of the great underrated pitchers in the game. He has been outstanding in recent years. And right now, the Reds, from what I can tell, they are taking a very broad look at things. They are looking at ways to trim their payroll a bit. They may also then save some money on the pitching side of things and then go out and invest for multiple years in a shortstop, which is one key need for their roster. So I think they're looking around, Fran and Tom, and saying, when you consider the need for pitching, the free agent market isn't necessarily high end from a standpoint of pitching at the very top end. You've got Bauer and Sugano certainly as a posted player, and Taijuan Walker coming off a very good year. But it's not as though you've got a Cole and a Strasburg both in the market at the same time as we had last year. So maybe taking advantage of where the overall free agent market is, and teams like the Padres, maybe the Giants, two teams that I think would look to add one more pitcher, certainly in either case. Maybe even the Yankees, when you consider where they're at right now. I think they need some more reliable innings. So I think it's a matter of just really assessing how much value you've got with your club. And I think Castillo's name, similar logic there. If Lindor is out there, you might as well ask about Ramirez. If the likes of Sonny Gray is out there, you might as well also ask about the great Luis Castillo.
Yeah, that's a stunner for me, though, when you think about how, to me, Castillo's got number one stuff. I love the way that he throws. Lower release point, not a lot of effort, yet it's 97 with, as JP said, unbelievable changeup. Swing and miss stuff, doesn't allow home runs. He's everything you want in this game, especially at a very cheap price. I mean, I don't see that unless there's a Chris Sale deal out there. I don't see the motivation here for Cincinnati. I understand listening. We all listen. Don't see them motivated to trade. Sonny Gray may be different, JP. I mean, Sonny's making a little more money. Could there be a package deal? Eugenio Suarez, for instance. You might as well ask about him. I mean, as long as we're knocking on the door of the Reds, what about a package deal with those two?
Well, it's a very intriguing idea, Tom. And in fact, I was told over the weekend that that's one option when you consider speaking with the New York Mets, where there is interest perhaps in one more starting pitcher for the Mets. We've heard them linked to Trevor Bauer, the former Cincinnati Red. And then also you consider what Suarez would do at third base. We've heard the Mets interested in Nolan Arenado. Suarez coming off a down year, but we've seen the power from him in the past, a record-setting number of home runs as a third baseman for Eugenio Suarez. So slow start to the year for Suarez in 2020, but I do expect he's a young player. He'll bounce back. That is where, if I'm the Reds, to your point, Tom, I would be more inclined to trade both of these players and then keep Castillo. When you consider with the Mets situation, maybe there's a way to bring in a young shortstop in a trade with the Mets to play in Cincinnati for multiple years to come there over at short. There's a lot of intriguing possibilities there, but I do think, and I was told over the weekend, that the possible package deal, if you're going to save money, Suarez's contract is still pretty lucrative for a long time. That's one way to do so. You maybe get a team that wants to bet on the upswing after a down year for Suarez. I think it's a really intriguing option, and I do think more likely there than it would be to move Castillo. And a final point about the trade market in general, guys. I was told by an executive, an assistant GM just this morning, in fact, that maybe because of where we're at, to Fran's earlier question about 2020 in general and how unique the offseason has been, we may see more trades over the holidays because people aren't traveling. We're used to, not me, but the GMs are used to having negotiations over Zoom calls, and they're used to kind of making deals, and it's not quite as much of a dividing line between, okay, I'm going home for the holidays, I don't want to have a conversation for a week about baseball. We're not really doing that this year, so perhaps we could have some trades under the Christmas tree this year. One never knows.